a lot of veterans either have or end up having pain in their joints. And so today what I want to do is I want to break this down, and I want to talk about the VA's painful motion rule and how it's rated. And I'll be honest with you, I'll be upfront. These are not high value claims. You're not going to get a 30% rating for it for just pain alone. So I do want you to realize that. But if you're just starting out and you have it and you can get it service connected, it's not a bad idea to get this one on the board. And there are some other reasons that this can be part of your strategy. So if you do have, pain, painful motion, joint pain, whatever it is, knee pain, which I think is probably very common in veterans, this is out there, and I want you to know what it says and what it means, so that if you have it, you can start considering to put in a claim for this. So like, what does the VA consider joint pain when you're putting in a claim? I'll talk about that. I'll jump into kind of like, proving service connection, evidence, obviously. And then I'm going to also even talk about how, even though this isn't a high value claim, how it can add some points for later on when you start, claiming bigger high value claims. There is a bilateral factor that won't shoot you all the way up, but it will give you a little more, and I'll kind of explain that towards the end. So jumping right into this, the VA, and this is important for you to know, they won't exactly give you a rating for joint pain. So if you put that in your claim, joint pain, they're going to try and help you get that 10%, which is essentially what you're going to get. But they want to see a different diagnosis, right? They want to see, they want to see arthritis, or something like that in there. I'm not saying you can't put in for joint pain, because you can, but they want to see a diagnosis of something, and so the VA's painful motion rule is in the 38 CFR. It's under 4.59. I'll link to it down below, but it basically just says that that the VA the VA is required to consider pain during all musculoskeletal disabilities, so orthopedic conditions. So the VA has to do that. Now they do it. They rate this different in every single condition. So you have to look at what the 38 CFR says about your specific condition. So if you're going for knee pain, what does it say about knee pain? It'll be in there, and it's in these, and usually it's 10%. It might be 0%, but the VA has to consider that. Okay, so that's very important. And this can really be proven by you talking to your doctor about it and getting your doctor to put that in his notes or your notes. If you tell your doctor, like, listen, whenever I move my knee or when I walk, it's painful, right? Like, we all experience that. So just make sure that's in there, because they will want to see that. You'll also want to talk about that pain with your C&P examiner. Explain the different flare-ups that you have and when it hurts the most, because that's true, right? Like that's we experience those pains. That the painful motion rule, CFR 4.59, specifically even talks about the facial expressions that you'll make when you're moving, the wincing, all that stuff's in there. So the VA definitely does consider that as part of when they are considering what your rating should be. So like, for example, if you were injured you injured your knee in service and you're diagnosed with arthritis, assuming that you have that service connected, because believe me, that's the main part here is that service connection piece. But maybe you don't have like a limited range of motion, but you do have pain, that maybe that doesn't affect it, but you do have pain in your knee. The VA is going to have to consider that. And let's be honest and fair here. Like, the VA, with the way that they structured the 38 CFR, they're looking at, limited range of motion, and how it affects you on a daily basis. So that pain has to be considered, but it may not get you the super, super high rating. Now, I just said that you got to prove service connection on this. So how do you do that? There's different ways, right? And we talk about this in almost every video. Direct service connection. This is, an injury that happened while you were in the military. It's documented in your service treatment records. You should be able to draw that picture from point A to point B to show the nexus there. It can also be a secondary condition. All right, this is how you increase a small 10% for joint pain into something bigger. Joint pain caused by, your joint pain causing another service-connected condition. Maybe you got some sort of back injury and now you have hip pain, or maybe your hip pain that you have causes some sort of mental health condition. If you're doing something like that, that's a little bit more complicated. I want to make sure that you consider, if you can't establish the nexus, I want you to consider checking out informedveteran.com. That's my website that has a directory of doctors, medical professionals that write nexus letters for you. They'll evaluate you and they'll help you out figuring out whether or not your condition was. That's a free website, a free service for you. The doctors will charge you, but obviously it's a free website. Go look at it. Click on their website and go in and talk to them and deal with them. The only thing I ask from you is, if you do use their services, please review the doctor on there so that other vets can do that. Right now, I don't think I have any reviews for any of the doctors, but I'd like to get that fixed. And then, of course, presumptive condition. And I will mention that if you're within 1 year of separation and you have arthritis, that is considered a presumptive condition. So please go get that documented so you can go ahead and get that win on the board if you don't already have it. Evidence you're going to need for joint pain, the same that you would expect for any musculoskeletal. You're looking at X-rays, MRIs, of course, doctor's records, notes, anything to give you that current diagnosis. That's super important in joint pain. You've got to have that diagnosis. Something's causing that joint pain. So what is it? And that's what you want to make sure that you have. You want to have your service treatment records. You want to have credible lay statements, buddy statements, someone that witnessed an incident or an accident or an injury that you had in the military. Remember, the VA is not going to go out and as long as it's credible and it happened and it's honest, and there's no inconsistencies like that, you're going to get credit for that. So, make sure that you submit that so that you're not appealing 100 times. And then, of course, if you're doing one of these complicated ones, you want to make sure that you have a nexus letter to link the pain to the service. I will say, though, if you're just trying to get a 10% rating, I would not go out and pay for a nexus letter. Those things can be $1,500. But if you're trying to take pain and into something else that could be high value, like mental health, then absolutely you should consider that. But I don't think that you should try to pay $1,500 to get a 10% rating. That's not going to help you. But on the flip side, a small rating can turn this into a little bit of a bigger rating. And what do I mean by that? If you have knee pain on both of your legs or both of your knees, you're going to get that bilateral factor. And I know it's confusing, but just to give you like an example of how that would work, let's say you get 10% for painful motion on your left knee, 10% on your right knee. VA math, you're at 19%. But when you add that bilateral factor, you're actually at 21. What happens if a couple of years down the road and you're in this process and you're at 94%? Or I'm sorry, 84. And then if you could get that, if you could get that and you just need that one additional percentage point, popping it up to either an 85 or a 95 from that would be super helpful to get you to 100% or to 90% or whatever it is. But the bilateral factor essentially gives you that one additional percent, which if you're at a 4 anywhere on there, when I say 4, I mean like 84 could get you to a 85, or 94 could get you to a 95, which would bring you to 90 or 100% respectively. So that's really important. I'm going to make another video on bilateral factor. There's a lot out there, but if you don't understand that concept, I think that's important. I don't think it's important to go out and spend $1,500 on a nexus letter to get you to 21%, but it might be helpful to get you to one of the higher ratings later on. So some common mistakes that veterans make is relying on pain alone without a diagnosis. Go in there with your arthritis diagnosis. You probably have it if you have knee pain. Something's going on there. Get all that stuff squared away. Remember, we want to have strategy. We also want to be confident in what we're trying to claim. And if we know that we need to have a diagnosis, we should go get a diagnosis. So don't rely on pain solely for your claim. Make sure you're explaining your flare-ups during your C&P exams. Sometimes these C&P exams are 15 minutes and there's really not enough time. The doctor's only asking, the questions that are on the DBQ usually, and flare-ups should be covered on there, but maybe like have a plan to say, hey, like I've been documenting them on this piece of paper, and here you go, and give it to the doctor. And obviously have that on your personal statement as well. And then, another common mistake is just forgetting to claim secondary issues, how the joint pain leads to mental health or sleep issues, whatever it might be. Just make sure that you're not forgetting to do that. You don't do that at the same exact time, although you can, but that does require a little more effort. You're going to probably need to get a nexus letter, and then that can be a little more expensive for you. But if it's for a high value claim, and your VSO thinks it's worth it and you think it's worth it, you should certainly try. And that'll bring me just to the end of this. Don't forget about the resources that I have to make your claim stronger. That Nexus directory is there. There's also a directory for attorneys that might be able to help you out. And I do have that disability claim worksheet that I think will be helpful for those of you who are starting this and you're just trying to figure out what you have. This worksheet, it's free for you. It's it's a Google Sheets document. It's got 3 tabs, and it helps you kind of break down like what kind of evidence you had in service that might be able to relate to something that you have now. It really tries to help you brainstorm. Do you have service connection? Do you have the diagnosis? Do you have what you need to get this thing approved? If you want that, just comment worksheet down below, and I'll send you a link to it. So listen, that's joint pain in a nutshell. I'll link to the 38 CFR that talks about painful motion in the joints, and then you can be educated on it and try it, and good luck to you.